Hello, everybody. It is January 3rd, 2026. It's been almost half a year since I've done a podcast. So, not that anyone is a huge fan of my podcast, but my apologies for the delay in getting another one back out there. I make this for two reasons, I guess. Number one, because I've realized that I need to get back into making podcasts for myself and for my, I guess you could say, my brand. Um, People like to listen to podcasts. I had a good routine of making podcasts when I was living in Charleston. It just kind of fit in well with my day. Um, I enjoyed it. It was something for me to do in a period of time, a couple of hours during my day when I didn't feel as energized or motivated to do other stuff. Like, I love writing in the mornings. I love exercising in the afternoon/evenings. There was a chunk of time in my day when I was living out there that I didn't really have much to do, and I kinda filled it. Even though I didn't post a whole lot of podcasts, I kinda filled it with filming a lot and talking to a camera and practicing, I guess, being eloquent and putting together a relatively compelling verbal essay, something like that. So I've realized I just need to get back into it that for that reason, and number 2, because I actually have something on my mind that I wanna talk about, because not everything that I have an opinion on. What am I trying to say? I think there are things that you ought to write about, and you can write about anything, and obviously you can talk about anything. But there are some things that I just like to talk about, and some things that I like to write about. And I guess this is perhaps for its simplicity, for its straightforwardness. This is something that I'd like to talk about because I can pontificate, which you can't really do as much when you're writing because reading isn't as captivating as a video. So this is something that I can just kind of talk about a little bit more, and go on some tangents. Whereas when you're writing, you kind of want to stick to a solitary train of thought, a solitary idea, a solitary point. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video because I kind of saw this as the first olive branch or the first segue into recultivating that habit, the habit of making these videos and podcasts and practicing my speech and talking about stuff. So, with that said, what I want to talk about today is something I think I've written about it, or at least an element of it, but I haven't really covered it comprehensively. And I've definitely hinted at it in posts, but I just want to forthrightly talk about it today. Um, and that is conversation, or what conversation has become. And I don't mean to put anybody down. I don't know who watches this stuff. I don't know who consumes any of my stuff. But obviously this is coming from personal experience. So I'm not shitting on anybody I know or love. It's just an observation. And I think many people would relate, especially people on the Substack platform, because Substack people tend to just be a little bit more deep or open to depth, and concerned with more complex or, I don't know, enriching matters. But conversation these days, I've noticed it's deteriorating. And obviously, that's not like a super nuanced or insightful perspective. Obviously, I think basically everyone can kind of agree that something is going on. I've I've taken note of this before. I think I've pointed to this lack of seriousness in our culture. I don't remember. It's hard to remember if something that I wrote about was something that I posted or something that I just put together in a draft, haven't like, put it out in public. Um, but there's this lack of seriousness, there's this lack of depth. Conversation with a lot of people is, quite frankly, just surface level, unfulfilling. Um, And it all kinda comes together, the lack of seriousness, the lack of depth, the superficiality, the the almost blatant ignorance, it all comes together as one, and I'm not exactly sure how I'd label that, like, I don't know what I'd call it, but you get what I'm saying. And as I've also noted in previous posts, I think the primary reason for this is the fact that most people are not doing things that make them deep people. Most people aren't, I mean, in essence, reading, but other things create depth too. I think what it really comes down to is the fact that most people are not pursuing their true creative interests. Most people are just doing whatever they feel like doing, meaning that they're doing whatever feels good, meaning that they're living according to their impulses. When we're children, we're kind of guided by our imagination, we're guided by genuine interest. We do things that captivate us in a good way, not in an impulsive, addicting way, but in a curious way. Um, we don't do things just to get our minds off of, the stresses of life. We do things because we're genuinely interested in them. And at some point, at least in the world that I grew up in, that starts to stop. People stop doing things that they are curious about, that they genuinely find interesting, and they do other things. They start drinking, they start smoking weed, they start playing video games, and, among other things. And I think this way of life has been normalized. I think people have forgotten because it's so pervasive. I think people have forgotten what a good life actually is. People have forgotten what it means to live life. And this is evidenced by conversation, um, by what conversation is about, by the, I guess, I don't know, the nature of interaction. For example, when you see people you haven't seen in a while, or even when you see people you see frequently, I guess the question is like, what do you guys talk about? And what I've noticed in large part is that people don't talk about anything that actually matters. And I like to have fun. I like to joke around. Like anybody who knows me knows that I'll shoot the shit. But very rarely do I encounter people or have interactions where I leave the conversation feeling like we mutually progressed. You get this kind of dopamine release when you make progress in life, you know? When you do something that moves you closer to a goal that you have designated as meaningful for whatever reason, if you're a parent and you get your paycheck, you get a a dopamine release. I don't know if it's dopamine. It's probably something like that. Dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. I don't know what any of these things are. They just say it a lot on the internet. Um, but you get what I'm saying. And when you're living life and you progress towards something that you find meaningful, you get this good feeling. It's it's on one hand, yeah, it's like an instant shot, but it's also you feel something else because you recognize that you've progressed. You've moved closer to something that you wanted to move closer to. It's like when you're out in if you're a primitive human and you kill an animal and you feed your family, you know, you feel good because you've just ensured the survival of your progeny, at least for the time being. And when you have a good conversation, when you have a meaningful conversation with someone, the same thing kind of transpires. The same thing happens. You feel like you've actually moved. You feel like your perspective has been advanced in one way or another. And I just find in general that I don't know if it ever was a thing. I don't know if people ever like I'm definitely comparing my experience to an ideal that I've never experienced before. It's like the good old days. Well, you never experienced the good old days. You don't know what the good old days were like. You don't even know if the good old days were the good old days. It's just a fable. It's a tale you've been told. At the same time, I have had periods in my life where I have people in my life where I'm able to have those sorts of conversations frequently. And obviously I've had periods in my life where I really don't get to have those sorts of conversations at all. Every couple of months or a couple times a year you'll have a conversation like that and it'll be, a breath of fresh air. And everyone has experienced this before. Even the people that I'm basically insinuating are shallow because everyone is deep in certain ways and relates to certain people in certain ways. But generally speaking, the point is that I think we've become a very shallow culture, and that's evidenced by our habits. In general, we have very shallow habits because we're pursuing pleasures in our free time. Um, I wrote a post last year, actually, probably about this time, called The Death of Leisure. And basically, in short, I discovered in my research that leisure I think leisure typically conceptualized today is thought of as like a sort of time for relaxation. But the etymology of the word leisure is actually basically it means free time. So leisure is how you choose to spend your free time. It's not um synonymous with basically relaxation, doing nothing, letting your body rest, I guess. And most relaxation these days isn't true rest anyway. That's beside the point. The point is that in people's leisure, in 21st century leisure, is used for indulgence in large part, mostly. Um, Not a lot of people use their leisure to do things that are worth their while, do things that would deepen their life, that would make their life more fulfilling, or at least make way for fulfillment. Most people, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to hypothesize what most people do in their free time nowadays. It's like one of like five things. People are scrolling, people are eating, people are watching TV, playing video games. And I think maybe I'm speaking more on the male side. I don't know what women do in their free time these days. But the point is that not a lot of people obviously are reading books. Nobody's whittling, nobody's sewing, nobody is painting. And this is a generalization. Obviously, plenty of people are doing this, but the proportion of the population doing truly enriching activities in their leisure time, I'd say, without a doubt, has decreased. And I think this has led to this death of seriousness, this death of depth, this inability for any sort of fulfilling conversation, um, so on and so forth, yada, yada, yada. And so, really, I'm just making this video to tell people that, you know, go read a book. Honestly, this is like a national security issue, though. I know that sounds funny, but it's kind of serious. People are, our population is very progressively becoming totally incompetent and incapable. And that's not to say that I think this is the big misconception about these sorts of things. It's like reading and I don't know, whatever else you like to do in your free time. Like I like to go to the gym. Like that's relaxing to me in a certain way. And I think people think that they're supposed to do things that I don't know, maybe it's that a lot of people really don't like their lives these days and so they feel they got to distract themselves from reality. I don't know exactly what it is, but a lot of these things are not nearly as painful as or laborious and tedious as people make them out to be, at least in their minds. It's like, yeah, reading is hard, but it's super pleasurable, and you don't feel like, especially when I started getting back into reading, because there was definitely a period of time where I stopped reading as much. It's definitely like you have to build up endurance. You have to be able to, it's not easy to read straight up, especially a super thick text. It's not easy to do that for 45 minutes or an hour or however long. It takes time, it takes practice, but that doesn't mean you're gonna need to, like, rest even longer after that. It's not like you're gonna get off work and then read a book and then be like, "Oh my gosh, I've gotta rest even more now because that was even more tiring. I don't have time to do this. I don't wanna do this. You know, it's tiring. I just wanna stare at a screen and vegetate." It's like, first of all, reading's not that bad, and second of all, you're probably gonna be more tired and less well rested, less recuperated after watching TV than after reading a book. You're probably gonna fall right asleep after reading a book, and you're gonna sleep like a baby. But that's all beside the point. The point is that this is quite frankly a national security issue. We have a population of people degenerating because whenever they have the chance, they're indulging. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It's if you're like me, you probably feel the same. You probably feel like you don't get to have the types of conversations or the types of interactions or the types of relationships that you would have in an ideal world. And I really think that's because we have a population of people who are using their free time, their leisure, unwisely. And I think the only thing we can really do about it is start with ourselves. Um, so, yeah, get to reading. I actually just bought some more books today. I actually purchased, you can't see it because it's a flip phone right now, but got the Constitution of the United States here. I probably read it back in the day, but I realized it's kind of important I know that and read it and understand it. So yeah, that's one of my many books that I'm reading right now. So yeah, I don't know. Definitely got some more podcasts coming. So thank you for listening today, and I'll talk to you guys soon.